Hello, my name is Casper and welcome in this part of the tutorial. In this part I will go through operators, identifiers and data structures. So if you haven't watched any previous episodes, you can stop this film and go back. Or if you know exactly how to declare a variable, the differences between let, var, constant, etc., you can start from here. So let's go to the VS Code. So what exactly are the identifiers? In previous videos we used the declaration and variables, so we exactly know how it works but don't know what is it. So JavaScript variables must have been identified with unique names, and these unique names are called identifiers. So if I have some variable let x, this x is an identifier, as for example as var name is equal to Casper. This name is also an identifier, and this identifier can be made with single words or even letters. What is important, you can add here also some numbers, underscores and dollar signs, whatever, but it has to be configured like that, and don't use the JavaScript reserved words, like for example I cannot create var is conflicting, var let or var for, they are reserved keywords, so I can do it. Also for example var function, it's also not possible. So the identifier has to start with the letter, and let's check it. When I create for example let1, it will not work. Let1 Casper, it will also not work. Let0 num, it also not work, but num0, it works. But what if I type a dollar sign? It works. What if I type an underscore? It works. So I can add these two signs and any letter, and it will be working. What is more, the identifiers are sensitive to the uppercase and lowercase. So if I use let y lowercase and let y uppercase, they are two different variables. So just keep it in mind. So it will be visible in the code later. So if I have to make such variables, let's be very careful, because it can be very easily misleading to some annoying bugs which are very hard to search in the code base. Because let's imagine that you have these two variables, which one is uppercase, another one is lowercase, and you have to find that in the code. It can be super annoying and really difficult to looking for it. So just remind it. If we know what is an identifier, we can go to the assignment operator. So assigning some value to the variable is pretty simple and is made with the equal sign, and for example let x and assign to x the value 9. This part is an assignment. It's not equal like in mathematical, like in algebra, because something like that will not make sense from the mathematical point of view, because when I go with the x to the left side, it's not possible to check what value has an x, because x will subtract and there will be 0 is equal to 7. But in programming This means that there is a new assignment and it increments x with 7. And I can present that here. Console log x, console log x, and I have 9, and incremented with 7 is 16. I can do it once again, and it's going all over again. So it's just a note that equal sign is an assignment, but the equal in programming, in JavaScript, is just made with 2 equal signs. So you can now check, for example, I will use the if statement. If x is equal to 7, console log, yeah. And to achieve that, or maybe I will make a 23. Yeah, after incrementing it to the 23, the x is equal to 23 and prints the console log, yeah. So there are differences between the algebra equal sign and the programming one, which is an assignment. So let's go to the data types. I will clear the script and console and go with that. So basically JavaScript variables can hold numbers like 100 or text, which is called the string in the JavaScript. And moreover, in JavaScript we can handle many data types, and I will describe all of them, practically all of them here. So I will start with the numbers, and the first, for example, we will create constant, and number is equal to 10. So it's a number. We can console it log. And that is a 10 in the console. But if I take it in the quotation, there is a string. So you can see differences in the console of the browser with the color, but I will show you another method to check the type, but it will be later. So everything what is in quotation is a string, but if there is a number without the quotations, it's a data type number. String can be also passed in the single quotation mark, but my prettier extension is just changing it to the double quotation. But there is no problem with the single quotation and the double quotation. In JSX especially, we can use this type also of quotation to nest some variables inside, but it also is for advanced levels. Let me go with, for example, declaring the number p and p number. For example, we'll go with this 3.14, and to make decimal parts I just type point. What happened with comma? It doesn't work, only point in the JavaScript. What is more, I can add more numbers. Yeah, it works especially the same. And when I use something like const number 1 and make an assignment with some mathematical operator, so just to show that there are also infinities value, I will divide, for example, number 3 by 0. It's from mathematical point of view very stupid, and it shouldn't be done like that. But if I console log it, number 1, there is an infinity. So it works like that, but if I change the sign, there is a minus infinity because we have the negative number here. What happens if I divide a string? So maybe I will make something like that. It can't be done like in the mathematical point of view, so it should display the not number, but my browser console is rendering it to the number. Let's check with the minus, and also is changing it by default. But in the older version of the browser, there should be an information that is not a number. Okay, we discussed the numbers of data types in JavaScript, so I have to add also something called big number, and big number will be, for example, a variable big number, very original, and it will be equal to some number with the n at the end, and it's the big number data type. I will console it log. It differs from the normal number with that of how much bits is reserved for this variable, so there are more storage for that. And to represent some operation, I will add two numbers, big number, and to this big number a normal number. So let me make total is equal to big number plus 2, and there is an invalid mix of big integer and other type in addition. This is an error, so to such huge numbers I cannot add normal numbers because there are different data types like string and numbers. You can even see in the modern console that it's colored, highlighted differently. So just a quick reminder that it's not possible, but if I add, for example, 1 and it's working, and also is working. Another data type is a string. We also clear that and go with string. So basically, like I mentioned before, I can add a person variable and it's equal to some string, and for example I will name it Joe, and it's a string. And for example I can also use the single quote, but my pretter extension in VS Code will transform it to the double quotes. I can also make let name with these backwards quotations, and it will be Jim. And it differs from the previous one because, let me console log it. Right now I have Jim, but I can nest it there a different value and add the person, and I can print in the console this value of this variable person. So Jim Joe is just console log, but if I do it in the normal quotation, it will not work. Even if I skip these brackets, it doesn't work. I can make in this backward quotation without this dollar sign and curly brackets. It will also not work. So remember, only it works with the dollar sign and curly brackets inside the identifier, and it has to be in the backward quotation. So that's how it works. Next part is the array. So I can declare an array, and it's, for example, like that. Basically, what is the array? It's a matrix, and it's declared with the square brackets. So everything what is inside is it is the element of an array, and I can make an empty array. I will be consoling this log. Okay, there is an array, and console log is just indicating that there are 0 elements. I will pass some string, for example, name. There is 1 element. I can pass also a number. There is the second element. I can pass there another array, empty array, or I can pass an element in this array. I can pass an empty object, which I will show in the next part. So that's how the array works. I can access an array by the elements. So array numeration starts with 0. This is the very fundamental part when it becomes to counting elements. So I'm not indicating it like 1, 2, 3, 4, first, second, third, fourth element. But if I want to call the first element in this array, which is name, I have to pass the identifier of the array, then the square brackets, and 0, which is the index of the first element. So if I pass 0, there will be displayed the first element. If I pass 1, there is the second element, 2, analogically third element, and 3, fourth element. So that's how array works. Another data type is an object. So object differs from an array with that there are curly brackets instead of square brackets. So that's an object, and I can have some key, some values inside. So I will pass name Casper, location Poland, and for example age, I can pass there a number 27. I can console. And is visible in the console in the browser. There are also another methods of declaration of the object and array, which will be shown in the part of the tutorial when it comes to explaining more detailed way of the objects and arrays. Another part is, for example, the null. So there can be a variable with type null. It's just not undefined, but null, like 0, but not exactly the 0. We'll go through that also in the object arrays part. So if I type also only a, there is undefined, null is just null, just empty, and I can assign some value and it's defined with some value. Next part is the symbol. It's not used, but worth to mention. I've never used that in my development career, but I will show. And it was worth to mention that this type of data was introduced in the newer version of the JavaScript in 2015, and value having this data type of symbol can be referred to as a symbol value. Whatever it means, let's show it on the script. and it's made with symbol, keyword, and I will pass the string hello. Okay, console is empty, and that's how it's declared. I can console it log, and there is a symbol hello. I can also make it in a different way. Constant s is equal to symbol, keyword, and empty brackets. I will check also this value, so I have two symbols. Okay, and I can introduce you the way of checking the type of the variable. It can be very beneficial and helpful in some further development. So there is a keyword type of, and I can check the type of previous variable. So I can pass in the console log type of, and pass the s, and I see symbol, and for example I will change as to number, so I see the number. I can pass an array, it's displaying the object, it's an exception object. I can pass a string and whatever, it's just checking the type of, so I have to remember that on array it will call the object no matter what I type inside, how many elements will be defined here. Another very basic and fundamental data type is the boolean. So I can declare the boolean as, and it can be true or false. And it's very helpful in some if statements and validation and making some conditions to render some part of the website, some part of the backend, etc. So the boolean is the key of correct development and clean coding. And type of is displayed as boolean. Moreover, when we have an array, type of display object, and the same situation is with the null. There is also an object, but undefined is checked as undefined. So that's all in this part of the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching that, and let's go to the next part.